Ladies and gentlemen, I bid you a very good morning and a cordial welcome here to our conference on Wolfsburg. Thank you very much that we are able to accept our invitation at such a short notice. The reason is the group supervisory board meeting yesterday afternoon. Yesterday night we already sent out a press release, and this morning the chairman of the supervisory board, Hans-Dieter Pötsch, and the chairman of the board of management of the Volkswagen Group, Dr. Herbert Dies, would like to familiarize you in person with the results. After these two statements, we will have the possibility of accepting any questions that you may have. Mr. Pötsch, would you please take the floor?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from my side here in Wolfsburg. Thank you for joining our short notice invitation. As I'm sure you are aware, the Supervisory Board of Volkswagen Aktiengesellschaft had important topics on the agenda for yesterday's meeting. We've informed you in our press statement late last night. Mr. Dies and I feel the need to explain the main reasons behind that decision personally. Yesterday was an important day for the Volkswagen Group, a day sending clear and, we are confident, positive signals heralding the next phase in our company's restructuring. We've already accomplished a great many things during the past 2 years. The Volkswagen Group, since autumn of 2015, not only had to manage the greatest crisis in its corporate history, but we also had to contend with the imminent fundamental change as a new era dawns and to be well prepared for the deepest upheaval in history of the automotive industry. We are glad we can say today both have indeed been accomplished by our company. We've worked our way through a large part of the diesel crisis. In addition, Volkswagen has set the course for a fundamental transformation that is second to none in the industry. The group has fundamentally realigned and reinvented itself on the basis of its ambitious strategy Together, Strategy 2025, and shown just how thoroughly sound it is as a business. Integrity and compliance are the foundation of all our actions that we are even anchoring more in our processes and decisions. This is not least an achievement of Matthias Müller, who has led our company, and he guided us safely and brilliantly through these difficult times. But not only that, he has also started the fundamental and necessary cultural change with a lot of personal commitment. And we must be grateful to him that Volkswagen not only stayed the course and is on trust, but also its operations and strategic positioning are better than ever before. I would like to thank him most cordially on behalf of the whole enterprise. One thing is safe to say, Volkswagen is leaving this diesel crisis in better shape than we entered it. And we can now focus fully on our competitiveness and being ready for the future in a rapidly changing environment. Which brings me to the resolutions adopted yesterday. After the very successful first phase of our realignment, the VW Group accelerates its transformation with dedication. We are using our track record experience from the last 2 years to realign both structures and processes within the enterprise with the needs for the future earning power and competitiveness needed. To this effect, both the Board of Management and the Supervisory Board decided to further develop and renew the executive structure, the leadership team of the Volkswagen Group. We remain convinced we are creating the preconditions to secure our position in the top segment of the motor industry, and we are mobilizing all our strength, the strength of our group brands, to design automobility of tomorrow. You'll hear more of that from Mr. Dies shortly. The further development of our structures, the evolution of our structures, needs changes in leadership to ensure the core brand Volkswagen success and its good management in a time of tremendous dynamism. And our strategy 2025, in the next phase, to follow this up with dedication, the Supervisory Board has appointed Dr. Herbert Dies as a successor to Matthias Müller and Chairman of the Board of Management of Volkswagen Aktiengesellschaft. Leading the core brand VW is also an office that Dr. Dies will fill. In the transformation process of the Volkswagen brand, he has proven with what dedication he leads and manages these fundamental transformation processes. And he will ensure that this works in the long run. He has shown what fundamental changes he introduces for the VW brand and how decisive and how dedicated he is in doing that. And this performance and achievement has predestined to get the mandate to implement our strategy 2025 in the decisive years fully. In addition to that, Dr. Oliver Blume, as the CEO of Porsche, will become part of the group board. Gunnar Kilian will be new group board member for human resources, succeeding Karl-Heinz Blessing, who over the past 2 years made a substantial contribution to the realignment of the group and the Volkswagen brand. Dr. Francisco Garcia Sanz leaves the company at his own behest. Since 2001, he has been building a procurement operation of modern design at Volkswagen. By leading the diesel task force, he has made a central contribution towards overcoming the diesel crisis. As the chairman of the supervisory board of the SEAT brand, in addition, he has made an important contribution towards reviving the brand and making it strong again. On behalf of the entire supervisory board, I would like to thank both for their achievements and their personal commitment and work and the results they've achieved. The entire supervisory board has great trust in our new board under the leadership of Dr. Dies and would support that fully. Dr. Dies will now explain how we intend to accelerate the implementation of our strategy 2025. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Pütsch. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first of all thank the Supervisory Board for the trust placed in me. I'm aware of the responsibility that is connected with this new function, and I'm looking forward to tackling this challenge together with our brands and the employees in our group. So what is our plan for the second phase of the restructuring process of our group? As Mr. Pütsch said, the basis for this process resides in our strategy 2025. There is no reason to have any doubts in the avenue that we have taken. It is important to follow along this avenue with vigor and in a focused manner. In doing so, we have to compete in a very difficult environment and have to increase our pace considerably again. It is our goal to render our group as regards sustainability and earning capacity and innovative capacity and turn it to a leading company of our industry, and we are well on our way. I would also like to thank Matthias Müller at this point for his achievement of the past years. As Group CEO, he has always fully and unconditionally backed and supported the activities and agreements at the brand level, from the Pact for the Future to the product decisions at the brand level. With this work, he has laid the basis at the top management from which we can now continue to restructure our company fortified. An important lever for this is the comprehensive further development of the group structure, which was adopted yesterday by the Supervisory Board. The basis for this evolution resides in the conviction that we have that a streamlined group should manage strong brands. So that is the basic brand structure of the new group. So what are our plans in concrete terms? Within the scope of the further development, the Volkswagen Group will be broken down into 6 operating units and the region of China. The introduction of the new brand clusters, volume, premium and super premium, and the planned preparation of the capital market readiness of truck and bus constitute the basis for a more subsidiary management of the CEOs of the new brand clusters will assume additionally cross-brand management functions at the group level. Hence, the group responsibility is closer to the operating business and divided by several persons. Rupert Stadler will be in charge of group sales, Oliver Blume, group production, Frank Witter will be in charge of corporate IT. In accordance with this principle, further group functions will be distributed. Group development and research and vehicle IT will be managed by me. My function as Group CEO also comprises the responsibility for the top managers and the development of their skills, the organization development for the group, and also the group and product strategy and brand strategy. With this new, more compact structure, we will form the basis to be fast in our decision-taking process and in the implementation of such decisions. We will streamline the group management and we will strengthen the brands with more responsibility within the groups, and we utilize our synergies in a more consistent manner than before. Hence, the direction for the evolution and further development of our group and management structure is obvious. We will intensively work on the fine-tuning of this new structure in the weeks and months to come. Ladies and gentlemen, with our new structure, we will further promote our process of transformation in every respect and in all dimensions. In this, we can rely on a solid foundation in our work. The Volkswagen Group is an agglomeration of strong brands with a great potential. The management will be taken over by a streamlined group. Our strategy 2025 is correct. Our results have been very positive. So it is rather an evolution than a revolution. The special challenges that which lie ahead of us, particularly as regards electromobility, digitization and new mobility services, will be tackled with vigor by us. We will also vigorously foster the transformation in the corporate culture. In doing so, we will also anchor integrity compliance even deeper throughout the whole organization. We will keep our promise and make the Volkswagen Group a leading provider of sustainable mobility worldwide. In this, we are aware of the significance of Volkswagen and of our specific responsibility for Germany as an industrial center and for our worldwide 640,000 staff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm firmly committed to this approach, and I shall strive and work for it together with my fellow board members and the whole workforce of the group, with all our strength. Mr. Pütsch, Mr. Dietz, thank you very much. So this is time now for questions and answers. Please bear that we will have to restrict the time to about 30 minutes because there are other appointments that we have today. The first question here, Jan Schwarz.
Thank you very much. I'd be particularly interested to learn the clustering of the brands in the brand groups you've mentioned. Mr. Dies, maybe you can tell us, it's probably going to be the volume group, VW, Seat and Skoda, do the transporters, the commercial vehicles, as they used to be called as a brand, commercial vehicles, Nutzfahrzeuge. Is that so? Can you tell us about the other brands and their clustering, and what occasioned you to allocate Porsche and Audi to different groups or clusters of brands? Dr. Dies, indeed, in the volume group there will be Seat, Skoda and the light commercial vehicles. The mobility services will likewise belong to this category. Porsche will lead the group of super premium cars, which is a group where petrol heads, customers that like to spend a lot of money on cars and that have a passion for cars are here. Brand positioning is one of the criteria for the clustering. The prices of the cars, the volume cars, with the sort of price brackets that we are producing for Seat, Skoda light commercial vehicles. Audi is clearly positioned above that, and Porsche in the next higher price band, in categories of €500,000 to €1 million per car, Bugatti even more. This means that we can address specific customer profiles and needs. We can understand customers better and gear our PR and advertising to that and generate synergies on that basis. A follow-up question, Mr. Schwarz, can you bring him the roving mic, please? I'd like to come back, if I may, to the question, which brand belongs in which group? And you've described 6 units that you've created, in addition to the 4 vehicle groups. We have financial services, and then we've heard of a group, investments. Is there, rank, diesel? Does it include component manufacturing? And will that be a preparatory step on the path towards carving out parts of the group? And what about Ducati? Dr. Dies? Well, component manufacturing will be allocated to purchasing or procurement eventually, because we believe that our own parts production can be evaluated together with the assessment of the performance of our suppliers. And this is going to be all in one hand. And we also have assets that you might not be counted as our core business today, but we'll evaluate these and look at all the options. It might be expanding some areas of further development and evolution, or a consolidation or deconsolidation. We'll continually look into all these assets. It will be our objective within these brand clusters to have a clear focus on the respective customer segment. Your question on super premium, today it's Porsche, Bentley and Bugatti. And we are planning to make Lamborghini part of that group as well. We'll have to consider when the right point in time is. Ducati, the motorcycle brand, is being looked into. We're trying to chart the course here. What's the right approach and trajectory? Different motors in different segments or electromobility. We're looking at different variants and options, and we'll consider this.
Next question here, Mr. Hapke, first row again. Thank you. Mr. Dies, you referred to the model of the brand clusters. Could you try to elucidate why this should be better than what you had before? I.e., why isn't this brand cluster, which you're in charge of, Volkswagen, Seat, Skoda, and Volkswagen commercial vehicles, why do you have it easier now to manage this cluster other than the previous structure of the group? The second question is, if we take your new functions together, we can say this is Winterkorn 2. You have such sort of influence. Can you explain how you would like to make sure that you will be able to also cover all your interests in the weekly mail and recognize loopholes in time. And there is a new investigation proceedings. As Mr. Conrad, we can never rule out that such litigation would be instigated and such a charge would be raised. So how would the chairman of the Board of Management behave if they had to spend some time in court? Second part of the question. The answer is quite easy. And simple. You may know that we will not comment on pending proceedings. We have taken note of, or we have taken the decision in favor of Mr. Dies in view of all the circumstances that needed to be taken into account. Let me briefly comment on the other part of your question, which I think is a very important part. Of course, we always have to ascertain that whoever will assume responsibility will be in a position to exercise it and to fulfill it. And that is why I referred to the fact in my statement that Dr. Dies will assume the responsibility for the group as the chairman of the Board of Management of the group, but also will continue to be the CEO of the Volkswagen passenger car brand. In the case of Volkswagen passenger cars, there will be a chief operating officer who will be appointed in the foreseeable future, very soon that is, who will take care of a major part of the operating business. To put it simply, as the right hand, Mr. Dies' right hand, so to speak. And for the Supervisory Board, it is important that Dr. Dies is the right person for these huge strategic tasks which lie ahead of us, and that he will have sufficient time available. And that is why we have developed this concept of the brand clusters and the assignment of group functions to brand CEOs. We have intensively discussed this at the Supervisory Board level and came to the finding that as regards his competence and his attitude concerning a certain workload, Dr. Dies will be the person to cope. Mr. Dies, first part of the question, why the management of the group is easier. There are several questions which are easier to clarify in the customer segment rather than the volume segment, but among the different brands or commercial vehicles. But this is to do with pricing, product portfolios, which will have to be rolled out consistently throughout the world. Also, pricing issues at the different tranches throughout the year. So there are different coordinations which are easier to be handled and tackled at the level of a group brand cluster, other than at the group level, which is overriding and covers a wider range of functions and mandates. And we take it that we can be more efficient and faster. Particularly, we can then focus our group management on the big strategic questions, and the operative topics would then be tackled by the different group clusters.
The answer to the inaudible question is yes, there is a clear difference. The subsidiarity, the responsibility in the brands, in these subgroup entities with clear responsibilities. This works in this new organizational form much better, of course. And we're planning to clearly allocate the world regions to individual brands over the next few months. Using this, those units get more responsibility for their operations, and they're more responsible for this, which historically I cannot assess that used to be vested in just one person. Add to this, I can say for the Volkswagen brand that I'm very familiar with, I've got a great team in the passenger car team, and I'm quite confident that by selecting the right COO, a lot of things will work right even without my direct involvement with a competent COO, and the same will apply for super premium under Oliver Blume and Rupert Stadler, of course, who's a experienced leadership member. Truck and bus, the truck core business, of course, makes it possible to have a relatively independent strategy. And I believe not many interventions in operations will be necessary. It will run. And the colleagues at board level will mutually support one another. Oliver Blume will be responsible for production throughout the group. He's predestined because it's his personal professional background. Stadler in lean manufacturing as well. Rupert Stadler will be our sales distribution expert. The Porsche Holding Salzburg, the retail organization, will be allocated to him because, that's with Porsche, and with Rupert Stadler has the competence which is unique in the motor industry, from the manufacturer right down to retail level, access to the different formats. There will be synergies. Rupert Stadler will support me in finding the price points, the price positioning for the brands. So responsibilities are well organized, and I believe the team has proven over the last 2 years that it has also evolved and developed. Annette Weisbach from CNBC. A question on China. You've taken this out as a sixth big focus. Why have you clustered it in that manner, and why are you going to China next week? Well, China is of tremendous importance for the group, for revenue and for earnings. Organizational relevance, China will be leading when it comes to electric cars, also in connecting cars, connectedness. China is in the vanguard, has a leading role in breaking this new ground. We believe we cannot control and manage this centrally, which is why Mr. Heitzmann, who's very well anchored in that business there, and he will be our guarantor that our group activities are well coordinated and that the political relationships are well maintained. They're well connected locally, and we can't control everything from headquarters here. Yes, next or the week after that, we're going to China. I've just come back from China. We presented the world first, the launch of the Touareg. We had a brand day. We organized with more than 1,000 journalists. Volkswagen is a very important company in China, 13% market leader, and increasingly a leading role in the electrification. And with that, we, of course, every now and again need to go there, although Mr. Heitzmann is doing an excellent job. There's another question in the second row. Stefan Winter, Redaktion Deutschland. Short question. The premium group consists of the brand Audi exclusively. I don't think I've ever looked any. Mr. Dies, this concept was developed with little public limelight for Volkswagen categories, as we're used to that. How long did you spend on that, and what circle developed that? We heard that some of the board members were rather surprised by it and caught unawares. Dr. Dies, well, first of all, on the structure, Audi indeed is the core brand for this very important segment with clearly defined competences, competitor for BMW and Daimler, maybe Lexus as the main competitors. And in terms of the size, that surely is a segment that we are covering with the Audi brand, from the entry-level vehicles right up on to the cars costing more than 150,000 euros, super sports cars every here and there, well placed to compete with BMW and Daimler. Surely there are, the leadership question might be put in that segment. Surely after diesel, they're going into attack mode, and Audi is going to focus on going on the offensive. And of course, they will lead Lamborghini and Ducati, and in the long run, we feel that it's better to reallocate these to the super premium group. Audi, in the product and market segmentation, I believe, plays an instrumental role, but also contributions to the group with a retail, wholesale and sales organization topics. The second question, how was this developed and designed? We have to add, some of you might know that considerations on brands and products along these lines have been around for a long time at some level of detail as well. It's nothing fundamentally new. And the proposal that is now on the table was discussed in a small circle, but in close conjunction with all stakeholders. In this round, there were discussions. What would be the next right step? A modernization of the company to make it ready for a new era where we've got to be more fleet of foot as the markets change more quickly. Technological change is faster paced, and as this is the case, we need to rely more on subsidiarity, taking the decisions on the lowest possible level. And it's a loose fleet of ships rather than one big, huge battleship.
The next question by Mr. Krog, please. Krog from Hamburg Automobilwoche. Mr. Pötsch. In the letter to the employees, Mr. Dies wrote, we consistently make use of synergies more than before, not only in the present function, but also as a CFO. You're interested in figures, Mr. Pötsch. Can you perhaps outline to us to what order of magnitude you would hope for generating synergies by forming these clusters? Mr. Dies, you said that the component production will be added to purchasing in terms of perspective. Does this mean that Thomas Schmar, Bayer von Westerholz, will then man this position? Secondly, Mr. Dies, there are two Müller, Mr. Seeton and Mr. Jungwirth. Why did you not make Mr. Jungwirth the group board of member for digital? And Mr. Zenan stay. You may ask, but it's soccer, the same thing where we ask for a change in coaches. And a second question, Mr. Dies, you often are referred to as the person from Austria because of your parents. Of course, you were born in Munich. Now, what is the situation? Is the first man at Volkswagen is in the second place also an Austrian, which is the case also with Mr. Pirch. And what will you then say when you travel to other countries in terms of your nationality, German, Austrian, or both? I would like to start with the first part of the question without repeating everything that Dr. Dies already outlined in his presentation. We are of the firm conviction that, on the one hand, on the basis of the group or brand cluster concept, and by having a focused work on the group among the group board of management. Then here we have the function of production, sales and development that will reside with a different brand CEO, which will have to render account to the group board of management so that we can have decisions taken more readily. This refers to the buzzword of a more streamlined group, and this will have, of course, the pertaining effects. We have, as I said, fully finalize our planning on this, but we wouldn't be good representatives of the company unless these decisions would have a positive effect. So it still remains true that we fully back the figures and key ratios that that you're familiar with from the latest presentations given by the Board of Management. As regards components, production and sales, it is not a plan to turn Mr. Schmal into the head of purchasing, or Mr. Brandstetter, who will take over as of this function as an interim basis to be turned into the head of component production. Over the next few months, we will have to consider how purchasing will be newly manned, and we already, of course, have some candidates in the back of our minds, which we have identified, whom we identified. Some of them we have already in the back of our mind. It does make sense to have purchasing and component production under one umbrella, because there were a lot of synergies to be tapped, and many conflicts which we would have to ask, like to the group level, make or buy or what have you, what technology to be invested in-house, and where do we outsource and where we have suppliers. Can we also have more subsidiary management styles, i.e. management at the lower level? This will reap benefits, but it will take some time until this will take effect, because this will also then have to do with the manning of the position which Mr. Garcia held before. As regards Mr. Jungwirth, I think Mr. Jungwirth did positive work for us. He set clear focuses as regards digitization of the group, and you are familiar with him, you know him, and I think he has moved many things within the group. New subjects were raised by him. But we didn't decide to have a division, a group division for digitization or IT, because we would think that this would create additional interfaces. We think that digitization is a topic for all of the heads of divisions to a different extent, and we think that by a stronger centralization and management by one member of the Board of Management, this would be positive. Frank Witter will be in charge of corporate IT, and I will be in charge of vehicle IT. What will happen between cloud and the vehicle. And we think with this we will have a very efficient setup. We'll be very close to the business. The market will be connected, but will not create additional silos or additional structures on top. There was also another person who was a father of the new strategy, and we have made a lot of progress, and there's no reason to doubt his motivation or suitability. As regards the group functions, we will continue with the same staff as before. Of course, we will have, of course, a different function. For example, startup will also have to do with that. You have to find whether it's the right team. But today, we're happy with what we have achieved, and there is no doubt in the fact that there's a radical restructuring of the management team, which will reap results was very successful so far. Last question: nationalities are of minor importance at our group. It is correct. I was born in Munich, and you will hear it by my German accent. But I'm also of Austrian nationality, and I feel as an Austrian because I also have an Austrian passport. But within the EU, it's not a disadvantage of being Austrian, so I won't change this. We have got many nationalities at our group level. Mr. Garcia is Spanish, but we work together very well. Mr. Robert, next question.
Christoph Raulheit from Bloomberg. When will the formal decision be taken on a possible truck imperium, an IPO, a carve-out going public? And what about the minority stake of the company in that IPO? Volkswagen has, we have from the US sanctions pronounced against the 7 oligarchs and their organizations. What about the cooperation with the gas group? The first question is something that Mr. Pötsch was waiting for. Yesterday, we published a press statement. Really, it's 2. Mr. Wenzler announced a cooperation with China, a Japanese commercial vehicle maker. And then, on the supervisory board, we've taken a decision for changes under company law. As an umbrella company of the truck business, we have a German GmbH as the holding, and we want to go the next step and transform this into a German public-listed company, PLC, or Aktiengesellschaft, that will then be converted and transformed into a Euro SE. That is possible. It will be headquartered in Munich. And that is the decision situation, the scope decisions, which is being discussed at the moment. To support the big opportunities we see, what we make full use of them, the truck business must be developed into a global player so that we have more options on that level. And part of this will be to use the capital market to this effect. Those of you who are in the know that you need to envisage longer periods and timelines. It's surely not something that's going to happen in 2018. And just to prevent any more speculations, there are no considerations for giving up the control here of that business field. Well, on Russia and possible sanctions, of course, that gives rise for concern in Russia. We have strong business, which has revived over the past year with the economic recovery of Russia. We have one car plant and one engine plant, and we've got business ties with the Gazprom Group, as you've mentioned. We are following events very closely, and should there really be sanctions against the gas group, naturally, we would have to reconsider our business ties with them, but we will not put in question our efforts in Russia, our commitment to Russia. Good morning, gentlemen. I just wanted to reflect for a minute, Mr. Pötsch, on Mr. Müller and the situation here. You say he has done outstanding work. The question arises, what were the reasons and what was the trigger? Was it the strategy, the brand clusters, which we are being told now? We have the Works Council situation, and the imminent AGM. Did that play a role? And in this large 570,000 employee company, some people called you the king's murderer. What do you tell those? And how did you become a friend of employees? This is a change in your track record, which is quite interesting to see. Let us begin talking about Mr. Müller, Mr. Heckler. I don't want to reiterate everything I've just told you, but I'll try to put it in context. Mr. Müller indeed has, for the group, and indeed not just during the last 2 years, but during 44 years that he's worked for this group, he's accomplished extraordinary things. And whenever there was a fire, he's put it out. And he took on responsibility to solve things. He was always there for us, and he used dedication in building the new product planning structure, and I could list any amounts of achievements. So it will get you nowhere looking for specific reasons, and I will say, if I am permitted, only people who do nothing don't make mistakes. But I will offer something so that your question doesn't stay unanswered. Yesterday, we decided on a comprehensive package of measures. A core component is the transformation of the organizational structure, also entailing changes in staffing, in appointments of people to the leadership team. Why was that decided? Well, because all stakeholders are quite aware of the dynamism of change in this industry. What huge decisions are needed now and in the coming months. And surely this is one of the material reasons for us to want to have a team on board that not only takes the decisions that are on hand, but once the repercussions are felt, when you see the effects, that they will be there to assume responsibility for these decisions as they're taken now. I'd like to comment on this, if I may. I have the greatest respect for what Mr. Müller's achieved over the past few years here. I believe his greatest achievement is surely the change of culture. He's lived and breathed it, he's started and instigated it, and you can measure this on a daily basis. He was the benchmark. It was a executive management team that was a role model, that left a lot of free discretionary decisions to management. From electromobility services, electromobility, the vehicle segments. Matthias Müller is a product planner, so he's made great achievements possible here. There is no criticism, and I enjoyed the time working with him. It was very good teamwork with a lot of trust. And then I was asked, how can we take it from here? People ask me that.
There was another question that was about the Works Council, getting close contact with it. Well, the Works Council is strong, as you may know, that the employees' representatives are strong. This has been a tradition in our company for quite some time. I have to get used to it. Particularly, that was the case during my first month. But this also has benefits. We have an employee representation which has a very strategic thinking, is very knowledgeable about the company, and assumes a lot of responsibility, which is actually the purpose of shared responsibility. And hence, of course, we have close ties with the representatives of employees and also an involvement of them for our strategic decisions. But in our strategic orientation and the structure, we have a benefit that Bernd also and his team are on board on the team. They have a very strategic thinking when it comes to the future. Of course, the question is how much efficiency do we need in order to fund the future? But here we have the Pact for the Future, which gave us a structure to do this. It's a package. And in the second year, we must say that we have a very positive development in the implementation. We have visited plants in Salzgitter and Emden, and we must say that these plants have made developed a great success in terms of productivity. Salzgitter is building new production equipment for the engines, and also the battery cells in Brunswick were produced on that basis. So this shows that with our close cooperation with the Works Council, we can achieve a lot. And I think that the Volkswagen Group has progressed farther than many of our competitors. We have about 10 minutes left, but I have a few requests for the floor. Let's see whether we can work through all of them. But please, brief questions and brief answers. Mr. Isen is the next one to ask the next question. I have one more question on Mr. Müller. He will stay with the group for some time. He will be a consultant. The question is, what will this cooperation be like? Mr. Diess, will you, Mr. Diess, then consult with Mr. Müller every day and talk about cars, or what will it look like in concrete terms? I may perhaps assume this question, take over this question. You may perhaps also derive from this which respect we have, what level of respect we have, whether it be Mr. Müller. I can say from my perspective that my personal relationship with Mr. Müller is absolutely intact, and on that basis I don't see any problem that whenever a topic arises that we should cooperate with Mr. Müller. I think you should use this as a symbol, take this as a symbol that we will now part in friendship and with mutual respect. Mr. Schweiger and then Mr. Menzel, please. Perhaps first Mr. Menzel. Mr. Menzel first. I have a simple question to ask of Mr. Diess. Your new contract, will you get a new contract, by the way, for 5 years? Or will your existing contract be rededicated, so to speak? Well, this is a question to ask of the Supervisory Board. The question was whether Mr. Diess will get a new 5 years contract or whether the current project will simply be amended so that simply his position will be changed. Well, amending it or changing it is not very technical. So he will get a new contract with a term of 5 years. Mr. Schweiger, now you may ask your question. I have 3 questions. The first one is, when will the truck and bus headquarters be relocated from Brunswick to Munich? Within what time will this be done? The second question, do you already know, or can you give us some information as to whether the manning of the operating management of the brands. There will be an internal, of the Volkswagen brand, there will be an internal and external solution. And third question, there is a lot of rumor and grapevine concerning the future headquarters of the Volkswagen Group. This may be changed. What is there a grain of truth in this? Well, thank you much for this humoristic contribution with your last question. Maybe I can start with this now.
Es ist eine absolut von Überzeugung geprägte
We are firmly and absolutely convinced, and this is also the attitude and position of all stakeholders, the headquarters of the group will be in Wolfsburg, it is and will stay in Wolfsburg. No other speculation is correct. There's no basis for this. Coming back to truck and bus, I tried to address this point. What we have initiated here is that we have a company law amendment in direction of a PLC and the seat, but this will not have necessarily a direct consequence for the employees, and you can be convinced that when this will come into being, then within the Volkswagen Group they will find a position. This is a matter of about 50 staff. And CEO, internal or external? Answer, well, we have sufficient executives here within our group, so this will be an internal person who will be appointed. Next question.
Guter from Deutschlandfunk. Dr. Dies, will it be part of your strategic targets to re-establish trust, or do you think the diesel exhaust scandal is part of the past? Subsidies, blue label. Will you try to get a revival of the diesels as your predecessor has done, not always very luckily? Independent initiative to promote that in an organization which is insecure after the rough ride it's had over the past years. Isn't that subsidiarity and the centralistic leadership that you have in place now, isn't that a contradiction? Dr. Dies, establishing trust, re-establishing trust with the customers will remain a task for probably in the next couple of years. We've lost a great deal of trust, particularly in Germany, but worldwide as well. And it will be a long, stony road to get there. We've done a lot. We've repaired and retrofitted the cars with our exchange premium, trade-in premium. We've taken old polluting cars off the roads. With the new measures, we've been able to reduce 30% of NOx emissions in the fleet. I think it's more than anyone else has done, and it's important that we're better than the others here. We've got some catching up to do. We're in dialogue with the association, with the government, what are possible new measures. As I said, hardware conversions or hardware retrofits are very important, and I believe this insight, this realization is dawning to many, even in politics. So if you do that, it's just not very conducive to finding a solution to reducing NOx levels in inner cities. There are much more efficient ways to go about it. In the town hall in Hanover, we had discussions. We're supporting cities and trying to help them to see where the problem herds are, where the main problem areas are, and to solve that. And the Minister for Transportation, even the federal government, were talking to everyone. We can prevent driving bans if we focus on the few points where there is still an excess of the threshold limits. Initiative and taking responsibility at lower levels, it's a culture, it's a compliance question. Of course, employees that comply with laws and regulations and that have their own moral guidance and values, of course, will be compliant even if they have a lot of freedom to decide things. We firmly believe in this. And the monitor we have on board has positive effects, brings knowledge on compliance and governance also into the company, and we're learning from him. We take his suggestions very seriously, and we're implementing them. We're in close dialogue, and Volkswagen needs that. But I believe that Volkswagen stepping towards more compliance and cultural change is on a good path and making headway. Next question.
I'm Joseph Kao, Nikkei. Let me ask in English. So, Dr. Dies, when you were at BMW, you made a partnership with Toyota successfully. So yesterday, Volkswagen Truck and Bus announced the partnerships with Hino, Toyota Group's truck maker. So are you interested in making partnerships between Volkswagen and Toyota as mother companies, especially in the field of e-mobility or autonomous driving or mobility service?
Dr. Dies.
Ja, wir sind grundsätzlich auch, obwohl wir sehr
Fundamentally, although we are a very large company and the economies of scale in the group can be mapped to that level of effect, we have high engineering and development budgets, among the highest in the industry, and we can shape technology. But there are fields where the whole industry is called upon to collaborate. This might be for suppliers, for fuel cells, and we are always open for partnerships. We have partnerships at many points and in many areas, and for Volkswagen, I wouldn't entirely exclude further partnerships as the way forward. Particularly when you're talking about autonomously driving cars, the investments are huge that are flowing into that area. And everywhere where we have more customer benefit, faster development, faster paced developments, where we can cluster resources, we have to consider collaboration. Mr. Doyle, and then the last question comes to Mr. Tate. Doyle from Die Welt. I have a question to Mr. Pötsch. Mr. Pötsch, human resources at board level, Mr. Kilian has been appointed, and personal qualification, I don't want to question that, but he is a well-known member of the Works Council and has been for many years. And as you keep reading, he's in close personal contact with Mr. Oslo, the chairman of the Works Council, head of Works Council. How do you see that? The future head of human resources negotiating with the Works Council representatives, will he be able to represent the employer side? Is that good governance according to you? Well, first, let me say on Mr. Kilian, I have known him for many years, and we all have, and Mr. Kilian, to my mind, has proven that he can perfectly manage and support large and complex problems indeed, with competences much beyond the Works Council. For instance, when developing the truck part of our group, the truck subgroup, so the personal qualification of Mr. Kilian is beyond doubt. We're not the only ones to have noticed, by the way. You might be aware that Dr. Piech, several years ago, made Mr. Kilian head of his office when he was chairman of the Supervisory Board. Just a little indication that Mr. Kilian is operating on the basis of great expertise and facts-based. Will he be able to do that in his new function on the board? We are firmly convinced of this. And at this juncture, I believe it's called for to reiterate that in many things it's the position of the entire Board of Management that has to be supported, and we are confident that it's a good decision for the whole company and to the benefit of the whole company. Klaus Tate from Die Zeit. Mr. Dies, I've got a very important personal question, is where will your office be? I will have two offices, one in the brand and one at group level, group headquarters. The very last question, Mr. William Boston on the side here, and then I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up. Well, thank you very much indeed. I'll be very quick. For future strategic alignments in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, this new clustering, is there some sort of an interface for larger acquisitions? Are you planning that? And the individual units, the individual groups, the volume premium, super premium, etc., will those clusters in the future likewise follow truck and bus and are going to be listed at the stock exchange? Are you planning IPOs? And with the clustering of individual brands into larger clusters or units, why are you keeping the individual management structures with these brands with supervisory board and board of management, etc.? Why aren't you dovetailing them with the group more? Why are you keeping the old management? Why aren't you reducing the headcount in the leadership teams there? Dr. Dies, well, we haven't formed the passenger car clusters as interfaces for larger acquisitions. We don't feel that is necessary. With our group, I believe we have economies of scale worldwide and we're well placed. Of course, we'll have to consider what markets the brands have further potential in. So we're not striving for a model of, in analogy, of truck and bus for the other brands. When it comes to governance, you're addressing that. Within the volume groups, of course, there will be mandates. The chairman of the board of management for the subsidiaries, for instance, will rest here. But the agreeing the strategy for daily operations will be done across the operative units. Will not change the corporation structure of these companies. M&A activities? Mr. Pitt, well, this question's really been answered. We are well positioned to do whatever it takes. As Dr. Dies has said, we're open for partnerships and cooperations. And this new era of the automobile, this is unavoidable, and we cannot exclude that. That is expedient. And generally speaking, as I've said, for truck and bus, it's about keeping options open. And in that respect, concrete measures independent of the truck and bus issue. No decisions have been taken. Thank you very much for showing so much interest. I hope you'll have a nice day for the rest of today and an enjoyable weekend. Thank you.